USPSA is a freeform sport, meaning they set up a stage with boundaries and turn you loose to solve it on your own. Sometimes guys get paralyzed looking at a stage, so I wanted to walk you through how I break down stages and the kinds of things I think about when doing it. I kind of have a pretty simple formula that takes a complex stage and makes it just kind of easy to execute, and despite what the stage looks like, you can usually get at something that's pretty easy to do. At the end of the day, a simple plan executed aggressively is better than the best plan executed half-heartedly. Before we get started, there's a couple kind of like guiding principles I like to adhere to, and the first is that the plan with the shortest amount of steps in it is usually the fastest plan, unless it makes the shooting too difficult. Because the next thing I try to do is shoot all the targets as close as practical or possible. Shooting stuff closer is easier than shooting it further away, so you can do it more aggressively. I try to keep all the targets in front of me and not swing the gun back and forth past targets I haven't shot at yet. And with any set of rules, there is always going to be exceptions, but usually those rules end up holding up. So let's take those and look at a stage from my most recent club match. And this is the stage that we're looking at. It was the most complex stage at the match by a lot. But even though it looks complex, there's really only about 2 ways to really do it. Really good stages may have multiple solutions, but usually there's only about 2 viable options at a given stage. First things first is to look at the stage brief. Actually read it yourself. Don't just have somebody read it to you. Put eyes on it yourself and make sure that you understand it. First thing is to understand the start conditions. That's going to be where your feet are, where your hands are, is the gun loaded, unloaded, all those kinds of things. Next is to look at the number of targets that you need to locate. Next, I'll look and see how many times each target needs to be shot. Usually it's 2, but sometimes it's 1, sometimes it can be 3 or 4. And then read the description of the stage to make sure there's no weird things like the last 6 targets have to be engaged strong-handedly or anything like that. It's rare that you get those kinds of instructions, but they do show up. So from this stage brief, what I'm learning is that the gun needs to start on a barrel unloaded, and the magazines must start on a different barrel or barrels, meaning I can put multiple mags on one barrel, or I can put one mag on a bunch of barrels as long as they don't have the gun on it. Now this stage is going to require something that is kind of gear related. Most USPSA guys are going to have a magnet on their belts. So I actually have 2 magnets. I've got one at the back for spent mags and one at the front for picked up and stored mags. And that's because when I pick up the magazines to load the gun initially off the barrels, I'm gonna pick up 2 in one hand, and rather than trying to thread the needle and seat them inside the mag pouch, I can just touch them to the magnet and reload off the magnet at the front. You don't have to have a magnet, but a magnet makes life a lot easier for these kind of pick up and store mag stages. About the cheapest place I'm aware of to get a magnet if you don't already have one is Ghost Holsters, Ghost Holster Direct, and you can save money with this code. A magnet is generally going to be a good idea to have for USPSA. The start position is dictated at the back of the range. The next step is to kind of understand where all the targets are. Now, looking for where all the targets are, you have to identify the areas of the stage where targets must be shot from, meaning that they're only available in that one position. Going kind of left to right across the back, in the back left corner, there are 2 targets that have to be shot from the back left. It's a paper next to a wall and a steel target that is downrange. In the middle section, there's a bunch of targets you can shoot on either side. It's available from both sides. And then in the back right, there is 1 target that has to be shot from the back right, and it's the paper next to the wall. In the front, there's a bunch of targets you can see from the front, and then finishing with an activated sequence. So now I need to pick where I want to start my gun. So another stage principle, going back to the plan with the fewest steps wins usually, is I'm trying to figure out a plan that has the least amount of backtracking that I can do, meaning that if I have to go all the way to the right and then come all the way back to the left, I want to kind of minimize the amount of land that I'm covering twice. And with this stage and how it's laid out, there's really not a way to do it, because even if you shot it as like a triangle going up to the front, the uprange movement coming back to the back would be retracing steps, even though you did them on the other side of the stage. So what immediately stood out to me was start with the gun with the barrel on the right, go to the back right, shoot the target you have to shoot from there, as well as the 1 open target off to the right, come back to the middle and take the 2 targets on the left that are in the direction that I'm facing, and then go to the back left and shoot the 2 targets you have to shoot, plus an additional paper and an additional steel target. The extra paper I'm shooting from the closest position available, and the extra steel target is the same distance as the target right next to it that I have to shoot, so it kind of makes sense not to swing the gun past the target and just engage it while I'm already there. Then I have to finish by going up to the front of the box. I haven't solved my reload yet, so what I'm looking for when I pick a place to reload is going to be a big chunk of movement where the gun doesn't need to be up. The movement from the back left to the front makes the most sense. So I'll do my reload there. In the front, I'm gonna come in a kind of the back of the front box because there is some targets that are only visible from there, and then I can shoot forward on a target and then take the activated array and finish with the paper on the left. Now, with an activated array, meaning you shoot a mini popper and it reveals another target, in this case, it's a bobber, you're trying to find something to do from the time you shoot a target to when the moving target appears. It's usually going to be a second and a half, depending on whether it's a mini popper, full-size popper, and how far away you shoot it from. In this instance, I have a beautiful static target right next to where the bobber is coming up, so it's going to be shoot the target, shoot the static paper, shoot the bobber. That's going to be the fastest, most points per second way to do it. So you take what they give you, but always try and find something you can be doing while you're waiting for an activated target to appear, and your hit factor will usually be a little better. So that is one plan. That is pretty straightforward. The shooting is about as easy as I can make it. The downsides of this plan is that it's basically a static plan. I can go back now, and now that I know what the pathing through the stage is supposed to be, and look for opportunities to try and, round off the corners. There's not really a lot of active shooting I can do, meaning that I can't be on the move, blending into position, those kinds of things. And that's okay, but it's not great. So the other plan that I actually initially came up with, but decided I didn't like because it was just a little bit too risky, was starting with the gun and mags on the back left barrel, starting in the back left corner, but rather than running back to the middle, going through the middle and shooting those two targets that I shot in the middle, shooting them while retreating, moving up range. It's going to require kind of a hard pivot, nearly 180-degree transition to get to that back right corner and then go from back right to the front. That's kind of the big difference. The plans are very similar, but the problem with that plan is while I'm gaining two targets to be active on, I can legitimately shoot them on the move during the time where I'm retracing steps. The problem with that plan is that it's through a narrow hallway with a bunch of wall support legs kind of jutting into it. So it's not exactly the most safe thing to be doing. And the big, kind of pirouette to get back to back right, I don't like either. So I went with the simpler plan just because it kept all the targets in front of me and it's about as easy as I can make the shooting. So at this point, once you've kind of picked the plan, you just kind of commit to it and then you rehearse it mentally with visualization down to very, very fine details, meaning that after the match, when I ask you about a stage, you should be able to tell me in explicit detail, like what your hold on each target was going to be, the appropriate kind of trigger care you're going to have to execute to make the shots. You're going to want to think about kind of your, height as you stand in positions. Are you going to stand tall? Are you going to stay low? Are you going to, what are you going to do? Are you going to load up all your weight on the outside foot so you can explode out of position? Those kinds of things, very fine details. You want to kind of go over that in your kind of view of the stage. And you're going to want to do it probably at least 10 times, probably 20 times is better. And there is enough time to do it 20 times. If you're shooting in the middle of the order, you would during the initial walkthrough where they give you about 4 or 5 minutes to go through the stage, you're going to get about 4 or 5 reps on the stage as you kind of figure it out. And then you're going to sit there and during each shooter, you just run through the visualization in your head at least one time up until the time you shoot. But if you can't vividly talk about all of the details of the stage, you haven't rehearsed the stage enough in your head to be able to shoot it with sort of zero hesitation. Now, I didn't execute this stage particularly well. I didn't make any problems. I was just slow. It was just the last stage we shot, and I was, for a bunch of reasons, not in the best physical state to be doing this. But my buddy Ryan on my squad, who shoots for Vulcan Machine Works, he took the more active plan. He shot it in about 21.35 seconds. But my buddy Michael, who shoots for Arise Manufacturing and named the stage Arise from the Shadows because he's a dork. Just kidding, Michael, I love you. Michael actually won the stage shooting it at a 20.95. So he's about 4/10 faster than Ryan was on the stage, which is about a 2% time differential. Now, USPSA scoring is points divided by time. But the time honestly didn't matter that much. That's close enough to be sort of the same. What mattered was points because Michael shot 25 alphas and 3 charlies, whereas Ryan shot 22 alphas, 5 charlies, and a delta. So that's a 6% differential on points. And if you add the time differential plus the points differential, Michael beat Ryan by about 8% on the stage. And that's really why. So the points ended up mattering more than the time did. That's not to say you should sit back and shoot bullseyes because that's not going to win you the stage either. The point is to figure out what the pace of the stage is. And the pace of the stage was about 21 seconds plus or minus. And Michael was able to collect more points shooting at the pace than Ryan was on this particular stage. So that's really it. You're just trying to minimize the number of steps that you take on the stage. You're trying to make the shooting as easy as possible. You're trying to avoid swinging the gun past targets that you're not shooting at. And it's easy if you can avoid big direction changes. You know, don't have to like pirouette on nearly a 180. Those kinds of movements take a lot of time. And if you do those on kind of every stage and then rehearse it well, you'll get about the best scores that you're capable of getting. You can always practice and get faster, but you can't practice at the match.